Roman Catholic apologists like Gary Machuda will often mention the Essenes, who allegedly wrote the Dead Sea Scrolls, omitted the book of Esther, demonstrating they likely rejected it, while they embraced the Deuterocanonical books which were found at Qumran. However, Father John Eckhart wrote in an EWTN Catholic Q&A article that the only Deuterocanonical books found at Qumran were Tobit and Sirach, and canon scholar Lee Martin MacDonald in his book, The Biblical Canon, added a Greek version of the Epistle of Jeremiah. In other words, only 3 of the Deuterocanonical books were found among the Dead Sea Scrolls, not all of them, which Dr. James White mentioned during his canon debate with Gary Machuda, who failed to mention this significant fact. MacDonald further noted there is no evidence that the Essenes handled their sacred texts differently than other Jewish sects and Christians in the first century. And other Jewish sects in the first century, like the Sadducees and Pharisees, did not embrace the Deuterocanonical books, including Tobit, Sirach, and the Epistle of Jeremiah. While some Roman Catholic apologists like Dr. David Saras will point out MacDonald cites Emmanuel Tove's observation from Qumran, Tove notes that a special arrangement was devised for writing poetic sections in only the biblical books, and this includes Sirach. MacDonald further points out on the same page, the above comments and observations argue for various notions of Scripture of the 1st century A.D. In other words, the Essenes' view of the book of Sirach as Scripture was limited to the 1st century, not before, which this earlier time period would be relevant, not after. And as mentioned earlier, the Sadducees and Pharisees, as late as the 1st century, rejected all of the Deuterocanonical books as Scripture, including Sirach. Additionally, there is no evidence the Essenes or any other Jewish sect prior to the time of Christ embraced Sirach, let alone the entire Deuterocanon as Scripture. Regarding the book of Esther not being found at Qumran as evidence of the Essenes not accepting it as Scripture, MacDonald also points out several fragments of a loosely parallel work called Proto-Esther were discovered and should cause some hesitation in concluding that the Qumran community did not know Esther. In fact, during my canon debate with Catholic Answers apologist Trent Horn in 2020, Trent conceded the Feast of Purim, which is found in the book of Esther, was found written on an old wineskin in the Qumran community. This demonstrates absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, and it does not necessarily mean the Essenes rejected the book of Esther as Scripture. Furthermore, aside from the Torah, it cannot be determined from the Dead Sea Scrolls alone what books were accepted as Scripture from their vast library. So we cannot conclude the Essenes embraced Tobit, Sirach, and the Epistle of Jeremiah as Scripture simply because they were found in the Dead Sea Scrolls among dozens of other writings, including ones not found in any Catholic Bibles, such as the Temple Scroll, the Copper Scroll, and the War Scroll, nor can we conclude the Essenes rejected the book of Esther simply because it was not found in the Dead Sea Scrolls yet.